Hi guys, it's Mono here from Motorcycle Tyre Warehouse. This is number 1 of 3 videos of the MOTOZ Tractionator range. We get a lot of inquiry about these tyres, so I'm doing these videos so everyone gets some good product info before they try them. Now this video is about the Tractionator GPS, which I call the Outback Distance Tyre. Now, they come in a lot of sizes. I'm not going to go through them right now. You can check them. They're all clearly listed on our website. I'll post a link just here at the bottom. Now, with that, I will actually say that they do fit every modern adventure bike and have a fitment for everyone, so no one's left out. They even come in Grom sizes. Now, where does this tyre sit in the market? I would class this tyre as probably the best back road or unknown surface that you could choose for. And that's why I call it the ultimate distance outback adventure tyre. So why is this so? That's because this tyre's got specs up to here, and no other tyre's got the innovation that this tyre's got within its carcass. But we'll get back to that in a little quick second, because what I'd love you to do right now would be to click subscribe. It helps our channel grow, it helps get the message out there, and I promise if you do that, I'll help you get the most amount of mileage out of these tyres by giving you a couple of extra tips at the end of the video. Now, one of the biggest things that I want to highlight about these tyres is that they are bias ply tyres, and that's very, very important. Let me explain this in a little bit more detail. So let's talk about the carcass. Now, there's one thing that we have to make sure that we know, and when you're buying a tyre like this, it is very, very clear that it's a hidden piece of information that not many people actually see. Now, in the size, if we pick a size, that'll be a 170/60 B17. That B stands for belted reinforced, and that's one of the crucial things we need to know about this tyre. That means this tyre is a bias reinforced belted tyre. So the term we're using is bias ply, and MOTOZ varies a little bit different than the average bias ply, or you may have heard the term called cross ply. Now, MOTOZ uses a 3 or a 4 ply construction where all the plies start at the bead surface, go right around the tyre and end up at the other bead in a cross ply construction. Now, this makes for a very strong and a very stiff tyre. Not all bias plies have got the equal amount of sidewall plies than they do a tread face ply. But what does this also mean? It makes for the tyre to be a very stiff construction and also makes it very, very strong. So when we get a tyre, okay, and with suspension, when we load the tyre up, if you watch me push the tyre down, it makes the tyre very, very stiff. Now, where does it collapse? It collapses here at the middle and the middle, because the tyre is getting a lot of the transverse load spread across the tyre. Now, this is very, very different compared to a radial tyre. A radial tyre, when we have a little demo here, when we push on the tyre, it only pushes the radial plies. Now, radial ply actually goes across to 90 degrees to the tyre here. So this adds for a very cushy ride, but it doesn't actually perform as well when it comes down to strength and rigidity of what an adventure tyre really needs when you're on aggressive surface. So focusing on the rear tyre, even though that it's a bias ply construction, it can still suffer from tread crowding, and that is the term that I use when the tread crowds together when the tyre is under load. So as the tyre pushes together because of the downforce, the knobs will crowd together. This is the number 1 form of wear. But what MOTOZ have done is they've added an exoskeleton spine right throughout the tyre, and they've done this on every single rear tyre in the range. And what it does do is it stops the tread blocks crushing together, which stops the tread crowding. Most people would think the extra rubber there would just get them further, but a matter of fact, it actually does do a better job by keeping the knobs spread so they can take load without crowding the tread. So when we get our little demo here, if without the actual spine, you'll notice that when we push on the actual rubber, they will actually all crowd together. And this will see the knobs crowding together, number 1 form of wear. But what a lot of people do is to get a bit of ride, and because of the stiffness of the carcass, they'll air the tyre down. But what's most important thing to do before you drop the tyre pressure too much, remember on a bias ply tyre, is the whole tyre will actually have to move because the tyre is very, very stiff. So don't just rely on airing the pressure down. the airing it down will allow the tyre to crush. Try and adjust the suspension, because there's a good chance that many of your bikes have been set up with radial tyres from new and have stiff suspension. So by airing the tyre down will wear, but by letting the suspension down or adjusting the rear shock to let the tyre move will take away the shock load, and this will mean that the tyre will last a lot longer. And another feature that MOTOZ has on the rear tyres of the GPS range is the rear tyre can be fitted in either direction, okay? On the sidewall, it actually has a 50-50 or mostly off-road. Now I want to break that down to you a little bit more clearer. A lot of people don't know that that's actually an option. So when you're going on-road on highways, you've got the center section. When you're going off-road, people see the big chunky knobs. But when you have it in the 50-50 direction, you'll find that a lot more knobs are coming into play. This can make it a little bit dicey on gravel corners. But when you put it into the mostly off-road, you'll end up with a bar style tread at lean angle, and this will give you more bite on a dirt corner. So that's something to consider when you're having the tyres fitted. If you're going to do it all a little bit of off-road, put it into the mostly off-road. It won't change how much you'll get out of the tyre for distance, but it will change that off-road grip, and that's the thing that we want to focus on. So let's talk about those tips I promised you. Well, the first one was definitely rotation. Make sure you spend the time to have a think on what you're going to do with the tyre and put it on the right rotation. The next one is one we talk about at Motorcycle Tyre Warehouse a lot, and that's pressure. Now, firstly, we have to make sure we talk about the manufacturer's motorcycle pressure specifications. They will have that clearly on your swing arm, okay? But when we're talking bias ply tyres, it might get a bit controversial, or it also might get a bit confusing. We have to take into account that there is also, people might notice that there's a tyre placard here. This will have the words max load at X PSI. Now this is definitely not an indication on what to run the tyre. I must tell you that this is an independent test for the purpose of a DOT stamp on the tyre. So when we look at the information that it has a pressure guidance, it actually uses English words but not English dialect. It'll tell you the kilo rating and will give you the pressure, but that pressure is the minimum requirement to run that kilo for that test. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. So do not use that as an indication. So on this particular tyre, it has 39 PSI. That'll be controversial with the manufacturer's motorcycle specifications. But what I would like to offer you is to air the tyre up always. We find that more air, less wear, less air, more tear. So with this particular tyre, when we get a bias construction tyre, they are a very, very heavy tyre. When they're aired down for traction, you'll find they work hard. So I'd rather people make sure they adjust the suspension and air the tyre up, and that's when you'll see a good result in kilometres. So before we go, we have one more thing. For the guys running the big 18-inch rears like the 150/70 B18, we have the 140/80 B18. Now this is another great option for those bikes, especially things like the T7s. It's a 3-ply carcass rather than a 4-ply carcass. We find it's a bit softer on the back. It will actually use more tyre more often because the crown is slightly slower and you'll actually use the edges. We're actually finding people are getting more miles out of this tyre and a better ride, with at least likely wanting to spin the rear tyre, which is very, very common on bikes like that. So that's something to consider. So once again, I'd like to thank everyone for watching this video. I hope you've learned something about the MOTOZ GPS range. You'll find all these tyres in combo pairs on our website. That's motorcycletyrewarehouse.com.au. I'd also like if you could find the time to click that little subscribe button or press the like button, hit the little notification bell, and then you can see us on the next video. Thanks again.